And we're back for another one
Yeah.
with Dan. Dan the man, right?
That's what some people call me.
Introduce yourself.
I'm Daniel, trainer from Ross County, born and raised. I work at Just Meats. I'm married. Oh, there we go. I'm married. Been married 7 years, 8 years. 7. Yeah, 7 or 8. Yeah. I have a 3-year-old daughter, and my profession is a meat cutter.
How long have you been a meat cutter, I should say?
Meat cutter itself, I've probably, I've been in the business, not directly cutting meat, but altogether 15 years.
So you're no stranger to a steak knife?
No.
Or a butcher knife, for that matter, right?
No.
So how did you get, if you don't care, let's back up just a little bit. So whenever you, let's say, graduated high school, what were you looking to do? Was this something you wanted to get into, or was it just kind of a by chance sort of thing?
It was a by chance. I was actually, at the time, I was working for Scioto Township, doing township work.
Sure.
And Tom, the original owner, he was a trustee. He called up there, hey, does anybody up there want a full-time job? Well, yeah, sign me up.
So were you not full-time at the time?
No, I was working part-time.
Okay.
Summer help.
Okay, cool.
So, I just happened to, they was needing a driver, so I went down there and started and worked my way up.
So to give you a little bit of credit, and I don't want to make any assumptions here, but to give you a little bit of credit, you are the manager, right? Yeah. So you started off on a random phone call. Mm-hmm. Does anyone want a full-time job? 15 years ago, so what, 2009?
Yeah.
Right? You were working part-time.
Mm-hmm.
Tom calls up, anyone want a job? And then so flash forward 15 years later, you're
running it.
You're the main guy in charge, right?
Yeah.
So how did we get from being a driver to being the manager? Because that's something I think I've not heard this story.
I got drive. And, people my age, well, I shouldn't say everybody, but me, myself, I had drive. I had a lot of people behind me saying, hey, you want to be someone, you got to work for it.
That's awesome.
And if you don't, you're not going to get it. And I've just busted my butt, learned everything I could about the business, watched people. And in there, they didn't teach you how to cut meat. Tom was old school.
So you just learn from your mistakes.
You either learn it or you don't.
Really?
They didn't. You just watch. I got through on a saw one day, 2-hour tutorial on how to do it. Was expected to know how to do it the next day.
So it's almost a sink or swim.
Yes.
Right at that point.
Yes.
You figure it out, or it's going to be so miserable doing it that you're not going to enjoy it.
Right.
Is that fair? I mean, in that situation,
yes.
In that situation that you were thrown in. So you were able to persevere through that.
Right. And, I'm sure you would agree on this. The older generation that you worked for, they're from, well, I think Tom was born in 1938. So how old would he have been?
Really? I didn't. I never met Tom.
Yeah.
So I don't know how old Tom was.
I don't know how to work. You worked. You didn't, like nowadays, a lot of people, they get a job and, they get hollered at or something. Well, it quit on you.
Yeah.
That was an everyday event.
It wasn't an option, right?
No.
Right. It just happened. And you I'm not saying it's okay, but you didn't get mad and stomp out and leave, right?
No, because it was a valuable lesson to me because, I remember getting hollered at because I didn't know where the light bulbs was on the shelf.
Do you know where the light bulbs are?
I know where they're at now.
You didn't forget, right?
No.
Right? And so maybe the next time before you, I don't want to say made a mistake, but maybe you thought twice, right?
Yeah.
Before you went to Tom and been like, hey, Tom, I can't find the light bulbs, right?
Yeah.
So you worked for it. Mm-hmm. You didn't just give up and throw your hands in the air and say, I don't know how to do it, or I don't know where it's at.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So how long had you been there when you started processing or fabricating? Roughly.
It's hard to say, really. I've probably been actually fabricating probably 7 years. I worked the kill floor. I think that's where I started at. We had a butcher there, and needed extra help back there, so I had to go back there and help. Whenever I didn't have nothing to do up front, I went to the back and worked.
So you immediately, so almost the beginning steps was the kill floor.
Yeah.
Is that fair?
Yeah.
Hey, Rural Roots listeners, let's pay the bills by talking about some of our sponsors. And one of those sponsors is going to be R&C Packing. R&C Packing is proudly owned by Jamie and Amy Graham, and they've been in business since 1997. That's almost 30 years down there, and that's harvesting cattle and hogs. So if you guys need some good prime or some good choice beef, that is the place to go. And the reason I say prime and choice beef is because they are one of the only facilities in the area that offer USDA grading for beef carcasses. Hey, that's pretty important. Everybody goes to the grocery store. You look at your steaks. You look at your cuts. You want to make sure that they're good. Well, these guys down there at R&C Packing, they are certified to do that. They offer complete harvesting, and they also offer retail cuts. So, hey, if you've got your own beef and you want to take it down there and get it butchered, give those guys a call, and that's going to be 740-245-9440, or you can look them up at rcpacking.com. It's real easy, rcpacking.com or 740-245-9440. Let them take care of you. R&C Packing, located in Southern Ohio. You'll be glad you did. They've got some of the best seasonings you'll ever taste. They've got some of the best meat cutters that you've ever seen in your life. You will be completely happy with your butchered beef. I promise you, you'll be glad you did. Thank you, R&C Packing, for sponsoring Rural Roots Podcast.
Because if you can't work the kill floor, you might as well forget the rest of it, because you're not cut out for the rest of it.
I got it. Okay.
Because that's where the work's at.
Yeah. I mean, and what little bit I've done it, and I've just done it in a classroom setting, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
I've not done it in a production setting.
Yeah.
But that is nonstop, fast paced, right?
Fast paced, moving. You got to get it done.
Because I mean, I appreciate everything you guys do for us, but at the end of the day, it's all about the numbers, right? You've got to get the heads through the facility. Bottom line, at the end of the day, right?
We get paid by the pound.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
And if you ain't getting the pounds out, you're not getting, money.
Yeah, you're not getting the revenue.
Yeah.
So from the kill floor, you transitioned, if you will, into the fabrication processing side of things.
One of the cutters was retiring.
Okay.
So there's two of us. They took us in and started showing us a little bit. It was one of them whims. Hey, I'm retiring next week.
Daniel, you're up, man.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, me and another boy.
Okay. So how long were you on the processing floor?
Oh, I was up there a while. Yeah.
Okay.
And still to this day,
Right. Yeah. I mean, now, I've seen you'll be killing this minute and then packing out the next.
Yeah.
Right. So is the fabrication, the processing room, is that the pack out as well? What I'm calling the pack out. I don't know if that's the
pretty
right.
much. Yeah.
Okay. And then aside from that, if I understand correctly, and I don't want to make a ton of assumptions, but you guys also have a pretty large retail business, right?
Yes.
And what all does that involve?
Any kind of meat you want. I mean, if there's a cut of meat that you might think that you want, call in. If I don't have it in stock, I can get it.
And then you also, so besides the protein and the specific cuts of meat, you're also really big into like the potato salads and stuff, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's a side
it's
of
everything.
it.
I mean, that's why I tell people when they come in and ask about stuff, I'll give them a menu and they'll say, I thought you guys just sold meat. No, we sell French fries. You want a bag of French fries?
Whatever. Yeah, sure. So with that business model, then you also do some, I guess a wholesale to restaurants, right? So you do work with some local restaurants in supplying sides and the meats.
Well, not really the sides. And that, yet again, that's one of them deals where you have to know how to break something to get your most money out of it.
Now, what do you mean by break?
Like a front quarter, to get your chuck roast out of it, your shoulder roast out of it, your rib eyes, short ribs, brisket. So
we're trying to figure out how to maximize the cuts, if you will, in each.
And a lot of restaurants, they just don't have the time nor there's so much waste on that they won't be able to use. So it's easier for them to buy the primal, like the ribeye or the chuck, to have us already cut it down, ready for them to throw on a grill.
Okay. And then with that, and maybe I jumped ahead of myself, we'll get back to that, but with that, I believe you're also doing some additional dry aging or maybe wet aging for some specific vendors that you're working with.
Kind of, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we can't really say that
Sure.
because you know how that is. We deal with the state, and that's another. We just say we're just setting it in there. We're going to cut it, but
Sure, fair. For legality's sakes,
but,
of course.
But we do age our beef 2 weeks before we cut it.
And that's just hanging
in the cooler. Yes.
Okay. And is that a dry age or a wet age?
It's a dry age.
Okay. And then you said that's a 14-day, correct?
Yes.
Can your customers, or I guess I should say producers, can they extend that to a 21-day age?
They can produce as far as they want out.
Okay.
I mean, it's up to them.
Do you think there's an advantage to going from a 14-day dry age to a 21-day? I mean, I'm speaking strictly from a fabrication. Do you see some additional value in the tenderness to that primal whenever you're cutting into those ribeye sections?
Well, tell you, I cut a beef yesterday. It was a bull. I had it hanging a month, and normally a bull will cut hard, and it cut good. I was probably the easiest bull I've ever cut. You know, normally a bull being that old, it really wasn't old, but he had serviced. Didn't have the smell to it like a normal bull would, and it actually cut out good.
So there is some value add to
Yes, it breaks the meat down more.
To the dry aging.
Yes.
And with that, dare I say that there's some value in harvesting maybe those older I don't want to say older cull cows, but maybe that 3 or 4 year old cow that didn't take, or maybe that bull that you've ran for 2 years and you're just completed in service. Maybe we can capture some value in that.
Yeah. I mean, all else hamburger. I mean, nowadays there's value in hamburger. You know?
The hamburger's getting expensive. It's not getting any cheaper right now.
No.
Hey guys, let's talk about one of our sponsors. We couldn't do it without them, and that sponsor is Lazy Creek Meats. We all know Lazy Creek Meats. It's owned and operated by the Fannin family, and they've been raising cattle in South Central Ohio since 1950. They are now on their 4th generation of farmers since 1950. They continue to preserve their mission, and that is to produce high-quality beef the way nature intended, without all that subtherapeutic antibiotics and without all the growth hormones. They pride themselves in being stewards of the land and giving every effort in maintaining a sustainable farm operation. They don't use herbicides or pesticides on any of their grasslands, and they utilize rotational grazing along with other best forage management practices. And that helps them optimize their hay and forage production as feedstock for their animals. All of their cattle are fed a diet of free choice grass or forage with all natural supplements of corn, soybean, vitamins, and minerals to produce quality product while maintaining the superior health of the animal. From conception to consumption, their vision is to feed the family and the customers quality beef for generations to come. Guys, look them up on their Facebook. They're all over social media. They take very well care of their farm and their animals. If you go out by their place, you'll see it's neat as a pin. And that's important stuff whenever you're consuming beef or whenever you're looking to consume beef. You want to see what kind of food that beef is eating. And I promise you, you cannot do any better than what the Fannins are doing out there with Lazy Creek Meats. So get on their Facebook page. You can order right there from it. I believe you can on Instagram too. But just shoot them a message if you've got questions. They're constantly sharing recipes and ways to cook and different things. And for all you chubbies out there that are listening, if you saw that cow tongue that we fixed here a few weeks ago, that came from Lazy Creek Meats, and I'm telling you, it was delicious. So give those guys a call or look them up on their Facebook page at lazycreekmeats.com.
Job. People don't want to do it.
But I think it's a rewarding job, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we talk about it being fast-paced, but to some degree, you can kind of set your own pace. Is that fair?
Yeah. I mean, myself, I've been doing it so long, I don't think it's fast-paced. It's just normal to me. I mean, I get bored at it, to tell you the truth.
It's probably more of a matter of staying busy rather than working hard. Is that fair?
Yeah.
If you stay steady versus just absolutely running 90 miles an hour.
Yeah. And there's some days I go in there and I'll run 90 miles an hour, and everybody hates me.
And probably a lot of that, and I don't want to make any assumptions, but probably some of that goes back to the fact that you're having to run 90 miles an hour because you don't have the help.
Yes.
Is that a fair assumption, maybe?
We kill on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So I need to get 16 sides cut out in 2 days, which really that's not nothing. I've cut 16 sides out in a day.
Jeez.
But that's moving. I don't want to do it again. And I don't think none of my help wants me to do it again. But, you know, on them kill days, I lose 2 people from production area.
Because you have 2 people
on the kill floor. So I need to get all the beef I can get out by Friday and Monday. Need to get 16 sides out in them 2 days to fill it back up again with 16 more, you know. And it's just...
So it's a matter of keeping... And I can only imagine how big of a challenge this is. I'm running into this now. It's a matter of keeping the coolers full, right? So you have enough coming in and going out while also having enough cooler space. Mm-hmm. Is that a fair assumption?
Yeah, I mean, we're behind right now, truthfully. I don't like it. I'd rather be ahead of schedule a little bit.
Sure.
You know, you're ahead of schedule a little bit. It's a little bit more laid back. You know, not really laid back, but you can do the other things. Like you brought that meat up to me, want me to bake the brats. Yeah. I can get to that stuff.
Sure.
And I can experiment some on other stuff.
Sure, absolutely.
But, you know, I just don't have the time to do that kind of stuff, you know?
So with that, you know, I think it's fair to assume you've been in the industry long enough. You've seen normal, right?
Yeah.
And then you saw, obviously, COVID in 2020 when we were all scratching our heads going, what are we going to do? So in a matter of like 12, 18 months, we went from what are we going to do to how are we going to do all of this?
Oh, yeah.
So where are you at now, and where do you think the trend is going?
I think it's going down a little bit. I think COVID's over and people's not as scared to get out. And, you know, I hate to say it, but I think more people's going back to the grocery store because it's easy.
Convenient.
It's convenient. It's not an upfront investment, you know, but for us, it's really not hurting us too bad. You know, I can tell we're not doing as much, but we're still booked.
But you're probably not, and again, this is an assumption I'm going to make, you're probably not dealing with as many, albeit new producers that are jumping on the bandwagon saying, right, hey, freezer beef is expensive. Now's my time to capitalize on this, right? You're probably back to your somewhat normal.
Yes, normal
customer base.
Right.
That are maybe their numbers are up from where they were 5 or 6 years ago, but things are maybe coming back to somewhat of a more normal atmosphere. Is that fair?
I believe that. Yeah.
Okay. Is your foot traffic, I'm calling it foot traffic, is your door-to-door traffic, is it up, down? I mean, and again, I'm looking at trends. You know, where do we think this trend is leading?
You know, I think we stay busy on foot traffic, you know, people coming in, buying a steak here and there, but it's still one of them things that it's convenience.
Yeah. Yeah, you can walk up and say, hey, Dan, I want this.
Right.
I want 6 ribeyes.
Mm-hmm.
You go to the cooler, bring it out, and there it is.
Right.
And it's done, and it's over with.
Right.
Where do you know, and getting back to the point, you know, I met you, 4 years ago?
Oh, yeah, every bit of that.
Or so, when Nate and Bino purchased the shop, right?
Yeah. That's when I was through in the fire, make it or break it.
Well, I think you've done a good job, right? You've made it.
Yeah.
No one's fired you yet.
No, and I say that, and I'll joke with them. I'm like, I did something awful bad to deserve this.
It was a promotion you never wanted or asked for, but you're doing a good job.
Right.
To give you a little.
Yeah.
I think you're succeeding with it.
Yeah. I'm trying, you know, it's hard work and it's rewarding work.
It is. Yeah. I would definitely agree with that. And it's, especially from a producer standpoint, it's a service that I would venture to say that the majority of us take for granted.
Mm-hmm. You know,
that it's underappreciated, that we just assume we're going to drop these animals off and in 2 weeks we're going to show back up and pick up our ribeyes, and they're going to be exactly what we envisioned they were going to be.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And there's not going to be any problems in between.
Right.
And I'll go so far as to say most of the producers don't know or understand or maybe even care about the struggles you deal with on the backside.
No. And, we deal with the customers, they'll get their beef. I'm like, well, that's not what you said it weighed. We run into that a lot. So we've started putting on the back of the sheets the breakdown of everything, of the fat content. If your beef weighed this much, you lose this much weight right off the back before it's even packaged. So it could be, always figure about 40%.
Sure. I would agree. Yeah.
You lose from kill floor to hanging, you lose 60%. From live weight to dead weight, that's 60% right off the top.
Yep.
Then from that weight, you lose another 35 to 40%, depending on how you have it cut.
Yeah.
And, newer people, and we've run into it, they don't understand that. They're first-time buyer. And, once I explain it to them, they're like, oh, yeah, that makes sense.
And that's, and I'll give you credit for that, man. I've leaned on you a lot over the last 3 or 4 years. It's that education piece that is invaluable. Mm-hmm. You can't put a price tag on that because, and I don't want to say I had an 8 ball on that or that I knew this was coming, but I was in 2021, I was afraid that as a whole, not just Southern Ohio, but we were going to have all these new consumers new to the freezer beef world. Mm-hmm. And they were paying this larger than normal upfront cost.
Yeah.
And without putting any numbers to it, they were convinced that maybe they weren't getting the same value. I definitely think they appreciated the knowing where their meat come from, but they just didn't understand.
Right. It's an investment.
A long-term investment.
Yeah.
I mean, for the average family, I would say a year of investment. Is that fair?
Yeah, every bit of that, if not more.
So from that cut sheet, has that helped? Have you seen an improvement maybe?
Yeah.
So just educating the consumer of hey, I understand you paid for an 800-pound carcass, but you're not getting 800 pounds to take home.
Right. It's helped tremendously.
Good. Just the education.
Yeah. I mean, anybody can get online and search it, and it'll come right up. It'll show the breakdowns of hogs, lambs, and beef.
So speaking of that, not to jump topics.
Oh, you're good.
But hogs and sheep, do you harvest those as well?
Yep.
Hey, Chubbies, welcome to season 1 of the Rural Roots podcast with your host, Creek Chubb, a.k.a. Kyle Fannin. You guys are going to love this season, mainly focused around agriculture and just anything land, okay? But we couldn't do this without our sponsors. And the first one that we're going to talk about is Bickle Insurance Services. Those guys handle everything from pollution liability to crop insurance to home and auto insurance to your farm needs, anything. The main thing is that they focus on at Bickle Insurance is coming up with a plan for you. So make sure you give those guys a call, and Kyle, aka Creek Chubb, he's going to tell you how to call them right now.
Guys, give Aaron or any of his team members a call at 740-593-7311 or at bickleinsurance.com.
You'll be glad you did.
Is there much of a demand for the hogs and sheep and goats, I guess?
There is. I mean, most of that's the farmers bringing them into us. They already have them sold. We can get any animal you want, really.
Is there much sheep business? I always wondered that. I've never asked.
I think I did 10 last year.
Really? That's 10 more than I expected.
Well, I can't say that because I did some fair ones too.
Sure. But outside of the fair, I almost think the fairs are almost I don't want to say a niche market, but
it is.
Yeah, don't count that.
Well, yeah,
but outside of that, you did 10, just 10 animals that someone said, "Hey, I want lamb chops."
A woman from Circleville, she called and said, "Hey, will you do them? I can't get nobody else to do them." Yeah, bring them down. That's easy.
so
when you're bringing them.
Now, can you harvest those the same day as you harvest beef?
At the end of the day.
Okay, so after the beef is done, then you can harvest the sheep or whatever.
I mean, we can do it beforehand, but we got to do a complete cleanup.
Okay.
Wash down, clean everything. It's just a pain. It's easier just to do the beef first.
So another question that I've always wondered, and you and I have talked about it a little bit, my career is heavily on the regulatory side of things, the compliance side.
Yeah.
Is that much of a challenge in your world?
Yes. Every day.
Just keeping the man happy.
Yes.
Or woman, whoever that inspector is that day.
Yes, it is. They need to educate them a little bit more. Common sense goes a long way in this world. I shouldn't say they shouldn't educate them. They're overeducated.
So it's a matter of like you said, common sense, I guess.
It's more, you ought to have more common sense than the book smart part of it.
And I've never talked to an inspector, but again, assumptions. I would almost assume that those are extremely intelligent folks. I'm not going to take anything from them.
No, I'm not going to either, but
wonder how many of those inspectors have real world practical experience.
None.
Prior to going into that.
Zero.
Or prior to going to school, I guess I should say. How many of those come off of the farm and say, hey, I want to be a meat inspector?
I would say 80% of them wouldn't know what a cut of meat was when they walk in the door.
Really? Are they at least willing, in my world, I mean, I make plenty of mistakes. I'll be the first to admit it, but most of them are willing to work with us.
Yeah, they are.
So they're at least willing to hear you out, if you will, and work through the issues.
Right.
So
yes.
A saving grace there, if you will.
Yeah. Some of them will, and others, they're old and
stuck in their ways to some degree.
You're getting right up. Okay. Take my birthday away, I guess.
But they can't take your birthday.
Right. Well, that's just,
So where do you see the future of not only just meat? I mean, we can talk to that specifically, but just meats and you in this industry as a whole. Do you think it's going to continue to grow steadily? Maybe not as much as we've seen over the last 48 months, but
I think it's going to drop.
Okay.
I think there's a lot of packing houses that boomed during COVID. Yeah. Everybody got the bright idea, well, we're going to open a butcher shop.
Or expand.
And
there's a ton of money out there.
Yeah.
From the state specifically for you included, and I appreciate the state of Ohio doing it, but there are some huge grants still available for you to expand.
Yeah. And I think it's one of them things you're either going to make it or break it, because as you raise cattle yourself, a lot of people's not wanting to hustle and try to sell them to individuals. Well, I can just take them to the stockyard and get my money out of them that day.
Especially right now. I mean,
they're high right now.
They are high, and I talked about it with Chad and Pudge. I mean, I'm looking at this as more of a 10-year plan than a this year plan.
Right.
Because right now, you're right. We can definitely, as a producer, we can take those animals to market, if you will, and get as much out of the animal hands off versus taking them to you. And for me, I pick it up and deliver it and everything. It's a lot more work, and
more risk.
But I think in the long term, I think it's going to pay dividends.
Right.
Is that a fair assumption, you think?
Yeah. I just think the little meat markets and slaughterhouses and stuff are going to have to start fighting for customers and
competing for work.
Yeah, competing.
So how can you set yourself aside?
You're just going to have to be the best.
And I will admit, and it doesn't always come down to price.
No.
Because you can be the cheapest. And at the end of the day, if my customer's not happy or whomever's customer's not happy, albeit Nate's customer's not happy over the fabricating, it doesn't matter what I raise. With all due respect, you can butcher it, right?
Yeah.
And make it horrible.
Yeah.
So there's value in it.
Mm-hmm.
And one last thing I want to touch on, what do you think we could do as producers to make it better? Not only maybe the experience, but the product. I mean, I know you see all sorts of walks of life.
Right. Yeah, I see from, I cut a junk beef, what I'd call junk beef, to a prime beef the same way. I handle them the same way, the same time I'd put into a lesser cow, you give it to the better cow also,
Yeah. do you think there's value in spending a little more time with that animal to get it finished? I mean, are you seeing? I know you talk to a lot of producers outside of myself,
and I'll tell them if I see a cow that's over fat, I'll be like, well, next year cut down on your fat a little bit. You're throwing that in a barrel. You don't make money on fat. We make money on fat.
Really?
That's weight.
Because you're paying on the hook.
Yeah, that's weight. I mean, that's money to us.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, real quick, I want to wrap up with the 3 questions I sent you.
Mm-hmm.
Who is one person you would like to see on the show? Someone you'd like to listen to?
Well, I don't know if you'd be able to get him, but there's a guy in Texas. He's a car guy.
Car guy.
Car guy. You like cars?
I love cars.
You probably heard of him before. He's his name's Rabbit.
I just stumbled onto Rabbit 6 months ago, maybe.
He's a person, when he's talking, you listen.
Yeah, and he's one of those guys that is self-entertaining.
Yeah.
He can sit by himself and tell a story and just talk. And like you said, you just listen.
Yeah.
I listened to a story just a couple of weeks ago about he had this old Dodge Caravan and traded it to this guy for the 2 or 3 semi-loads of windows. Yeah. Have you heard that story?
Yeah.
And then paid someone to paint these windows. And he talked about how he turned this I don't remember, $4,000 Caravan into like $400,000.
Yeah.
I mean, that guy is definitely interesting. I'll give you that.
Yeah. I mean, I've watched a couple of shows that he's on, then I just, I was sitting out there in the parking lot waiting on you to get here. I'm like, what's that guy's name? I know it.
Yeah, Rabbit. I don't remember what his real name is.
It was actually I took a screenshot of it. Let me look here.
Go ahead.
I knew if I didn't, I would forget it. Rob Pitts.
Rob Pitts. Okay. Rob, you're up, bud.
Yeah.
Maybe we can do a call-in. Maybe I can talk him into doing a call-in.
You might be able to.
You never know. Stranger things have happened. Yeah. What's one thing you can't go one day without doing?
Drinking my coffee.
Drinking the coffee. Big fan of the coffee. How do you take your coffee?
Black.
Black. No cream, no sugar, just straight from the pot.
Yep.
How much coffee do you think you drink in a day?
It depends.
Too much?
Probably.
There are days, mornings, I should say,
yeah.
that I cannot get enough.
No.
And I'm with you. Black all the way. I love it.
And I have to have it. As soon as my feet hit the floor, the coffee pot's on.
See, I don't get into it that much. I mean, I'm usually up, dressed, and then flip the Keurig on.
Well, me,
You're up before the rooster. And
no, I'm not. Not anymore. I used to be able to. I think this morning was the first time in probably 2 years I've woke up before my alarm clock went off. Normally it's went off 4 times. Wife's nudging me to get out of bed.
I'm a snooze guy.
6:30, I got to be work at 7.
I'm with you.
Good thing I live 10 minutes away.
Well, and it's a good thing that the boss isn't going to fire you if you're 5 minutes late, right?
Yeah.
Because I doubt Bino or Nate know if you're 5 or half hour late, right?
Nah.
And then the last thing, who is someone you look up to or someone you go to for advice?
I mean, there's many of people,
Sure.
And, most of them's passed away, there's a lot of people I looked up to, and I think that's where my drive and work ethic come from, was the older people, because they drove you to, work.
They did. I think our generation, we're in the same generation, but I think our generation owes a great deal of gratitude to our older generation that instilled that in us.
Yeah.
And I think the only thing we can do is put that into our kids. Is that fair?
Yeah. Like we were saying in the beginning of the podcast, workers and stuff, like I try to, but you just got to tiptoe too much nowadays.
I'm not one to tiptoe, as you know.
No, I'm not either, and it gets me in trouble.
It does, yeah. Sometimes there's repercussions from it, but we do our best.
Yeah.
Well, Daniel, I appreciate it, man.
I appreciated it too.
It's been fun. We'll have you back for sure.
Anytime.
Absolutely. Thank you, buddy.
Thank you.